obsolete object. So this is something that you've lived with for a while, but then, and maybe even got value from it, but it ceased to be valuable at some point. It becomes obsolete in your own life. And usually we'll talk about an item like maybe it's a dishwasher or cologne or something like that. We have something in honor of Pete that's a bit more esoteric right now. We have the shopping mall. Now, Anne-Marie has a statement about this, a comment. Malabama, would you like to read her statement, please?
Observation. Many of the malls in my area are going out of business or greatly reducing the number of establishments. Storage companies are now moving in and setting up shop in the places we used to buy all that stuff. It's like all the stuff we bought is returning to its original home. Deep thoughts.
It reminds me of Alan Watts when he talks about being born is waking up after never having gone to sleep. And for whatever reason, I'm reminded of that, and then death is sort of the opposite of that. It's going to sleep without ever having to wake up again. And there's a cycle, right? And the same thing is true with our stuff. I find it really fascinating. The picture you'll see on the screen right here is, which you can see right there. This is a real mall that Ryan and I used to work in. This is the Town Mall in Middletown, Ohio. My whole family is from Middletown, Ohio. Aptly named because it's in the middle of Cincinnati and Dayton, Middletown. And this mall, this picture, I believe, is from 2019. And you could see in this picture, actually, there's one store that's lit up. Of course, it's like Bath and Body Works because they didn't get the memo that malls were dying. And so this mall is one of the creepiest places I've been recently. I went there again this year. Remember when we were on tour, TK? We were in Columbus together. Yeah. Well, I was staying in Dayton, and I drove down to Middletown, and I saw this mall was open still, which I was shocked by. And I walk into the mall, and when I walk into this mall, it's wintertime. The heat is not on, so I could see my breath. The doors were open and let me right in. The Muzak is playing overhead, creepily. There's gumball machines still filled with gumballs that no one eats. There's like these different sort of the ponies you can ride for $0.25. There is nothing but abandoned stores all throughout. And at first I look around, I'm like, oh, that store's closed. Wait a minute. There's no stores. Wait a minute. There are no customers in here. I'm the only person in this mall. And I'm walking around and realizing that we've reached this transition point. We've, in many ways, transitioned out of the shopping mall experience. That doesn't mean that we're consuming any less. It means the way that we consume has changed. We're now buying things online in droves. In fact, we've removed all the friction, and so we're probably consuming more on average as a result. Because before, you used to have to get into your car and drive to the mall and put your winter coat on, walk through the mall and wait in line. And, I have to put it on layaway because I can't afford it or whatever it was. We had all this friction that prevented overabundant consumption, excessive consumption, consumerism. It didn't completely prevent it, but it added some friction so that we didn't slide everywhere. Now, when I look at the Town Mall in Middletown, Ohio, I see a carcass of consumerism. But consumerism has been reborn now through online shopping, through Instagram ads. And so these places, quite often, Amazon is actually buying a lot of these shopping malls, and they're turning them into fulfillment warehouses from which they send you. Why is Amazon buying them? Because they're close to highways, almost always close to highways, which makes them a great distribution hub. They're abandoned, so you can get a great deal on buying the building, and you just fill it with stuff. And instead of having to go to the mall now, so yes, the mall is obsolete, but it doesn't mean that it has stopped consumerism at all.
No, absolutely. And in the Schopenhauerian idea of this is like this drive is eternal. This drive is always at work, but how it manifests itself, how it represents itself. So will and representation. So how it represents itself is changing. So for example, we eventually learn that shopping malls are a bit depressing. We eventually, the luster of that kind of begins to fade, but then new forms of consumption arise. So we're also consuming differently. Like people now want to consume things that are designer, that are small brand. Like, so your coffee that comes from a a small coffee maker that maybe you watch on YouTube or whatever it is. What happens is continually we kind of learn that something doesn't work. So we find something else that we think that works. And so now as well, we're also buying lifestyles, which is quite different. We never bought lifestyles before. So there's consumerism has to find new avenues, new ways of selling, because the old ways, eventually we go, that didn't work. But the problem is it's like people converting from one religion to another, not converting out of conversion itself. It's like you're kind of going, you might move from one fashion to another, but you're still in fashion. You might move from one thing that will fulfill you. Oh, I think, religion will fulfill me. Now I think psychedelic enlightenment will fulfill me. Now I think polyamory will fulfill me. Now I think commodity satisfaction will fulfill me. It's just ersatz gods. One thing hasn't changed. You still think something's going to fulfill you. So I know loads of people who go from religion into sexual liberation, psychedelic enlightenment, commodity satisfaction. It's almost everybody I know, they don't find a way to escape the desire for that itself.
One aspect I'll add to what the death of shopping malls could positively indicate is that there's been a shift in more people identifying as creators. With the internet, we have a greater ability to distribute goods and resources without going through a centralized hub, which means unlike 50, 60 years ago, you can be a nobody in society's eyes. You can write a book without anybody's permission. You can put it up online and sell it to someone who lives in a different state. You once needed someone's permission to do that.
Right.
Or you at least had to be good to do that, right? Now you can create something that's terrible and just put it out there.
That's right.
And so now our ability to bake bread, to write books, to build things, and to sell it to someone the next state over, the next city over is increasing. And so I think what's happening is creativity is becoming more decentralized, and we're witnessing our habits of consumption following a similar pattern.
Did you enjoy this standalone Patreon highlight? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalist Private Podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists or click the link in the description. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.